Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's session of The Good, the Bad, and the Truth. It's your girl, Naya Angel, here with my co-host, Mr. PAT and E-Man.
What's good, everybody?
What's going on? What's going on?
So, this week, as every week, we have some really great topics to discuss. And I think this is going to be definitely one of our toughest episodes thus far. We are going to dive right in because, why not? And start this thing off with some very exciting and interesting news. And I think especially for me, as the two of you know, I am a super dork and proud of it.
Same with me. Same with me.
All dork here.
We're all dorks, so this is our moment to shine. But with that, we're fresh off the hype of the new Zack Snyder release of the Justice League, and there has been a story recently about a Black Superman to come. Super excited to discuss this. So the question is, will this movie come to fruition? And if so, what will be the impact? So I think to start us off, I'm going to go ahead and throw this to Mr. PAT. What say you, sir?
All right. So will this movie come to fruition? And if so, what will be the impact? It's an interesting question. So I can see this film coming into fruition. Why? Because it would be yet another way to cash in on Blackness. Black empowerment, a very watered down version of it, has seemed to be trendy lately, especially since Black Panther came out. Once the movie industry saw how well Black Panther did in the box office, they saw that seemingly, and I'm going to use seemingly, pro-Black content can sell. A Black Superman would just be a way to placate to the masses when it comes to diversity, racial sensitivity, and social justice. I think it would be more tokenism and symbolic gestures, yet no substance. What do I mean by that? Well, while it might be nice for little Black boys and little Black girls to see a Black Superman, the fact is these same children will still be growing up in a system of racism, white supremacy. We still don't live in a system of justice. We still live in a system of injustice. And I doubt that will change by the time this Black Superman movie comes out. If there is even a plan for it to come out, and I'll touch on that briefly in a few, but aside from the racial aspect of it, as we all know, DC live action movies has had some trouble in the past. Yeah, we already know. It seems like the studio gets in its own way when it comes to their live action movies. Now, I think they have been very reactionary towards the Marvel Cinematic Universe instead of just trusting in someone like Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder, as we all know, did Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Justice League, the Snyder Cut, which I think were all excellent movies. Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman were great movies. I don't care if others disagree. It's my opinion. Those were great movies to me. And the Snyder Cut of the Justice League was 100 times better than whatever that 2017 Justice League movie was, the one that came out in the theaters. So kudos.
That joint really sucked though. Just saying.
The 2017 joint, yeah, definitely.
It sucked. I ain't gonna.
Yeah, that shit was trash. That shit was trash. But
horribly.
It was horrible. I agree on that. But the Snyder Cut, whew, like I said, 100 times better.
That's a 4-hour movie, right?
Yeah, that's the 4-hour one. Yeah, definitely fucking with the Snyder Cut right now. But so it just seems like when it comes to Warner Brothers, DC, it just seems like there's too many chefs in the kitchen. And as an artist myself, I can only imagine how frustrating it is to not be able to have full creative control of my own project. It seems like that has been a big issue over there at Warner Brothers. Now, I understand that these companies want to make money. I get it. They're about profit. They're not necessarily about the art. So with all of that in mind, I can see those underlying issues being a hindrance to a Black Superman movie. The thing is, there has been no confirmation that this will be a Black Superman. At this point, it sounds like people are assuming it will be a Black Superman movie since there is a Black writer attached to the project. The thing is, we don't know for sure. At this point, it's just hearsay. Now, if it were to ever come out, I could see it being a big deal. I can also see it being very divisive. We don't have confirmation yet on if this version of Superman will be Black or not, but the racist nerds are out there running their mouths. Basically, the soft white supremacists out there don't approve. If you go on some of these message boards and social media platforms, you could see a lot of these clowns are getting upset. The thought of a Black Superman just pisses them off, even though if they were as familiar with the comics as they claim they are, then they should know that there are different Supermans from different Earths. There's two, to my knowledge, one of them being Val Zod and another one being Calvin Ellis. So if there will be a Black Superman movie, most likely it would be based on one of them. I highly doubt that we'll see a Black Clark Kent. So in terms of impact, it will definitely attract the Black masses, but it will also bring out the racist trolls. Money will be made and divisiveness will ensue. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for sharing. Mr. E-Man, what say you?
All right. So before we even, get into before I even say anything, I'm not a big fan of Batman versus Superman. I thought it was a very shitty movie, but that's just me, From the nerd side, they did okay, but to me, to my eyes, that movie was shitty. Man of Steel wasn't too bad. But when it comes to the Black Superman, for me, I would say I really don't care. And not because, PAT just stated there was two. It's the simple fact is that these creators are not being very, I would say, upcoming or more, what's the gentle word to say? Real about, the origins of Superman, So for all my nerds out there, everyone knows, Superman, the Man of Steel, and basically, the S on his chest, it stands for hope. But also, if you look at the S, when I think of that S, it makes me think of the sun. The reason why is because what is that great thing that Superman, when he's around kryptonite, he always has to head to the sun, and it gives him, back his super strength. When you look how history and whatnot, they always talked about those who were melatonin, how the sun is very good, to their natural bodies and skin, that the sun gives them power. And what does the sun give Superman? Power. But they say that the red sun, kind of weakens his power, and his weakness is kryptonite. And to look back at everything, when you look at many original people, that those who you consider as Black was actually green because of, what Superman towards like the whole kryptonite thing. So the reason why I'm, not really looking forward towards this movie is that, it's one of those things that we're just adding this to make everyone feel happy. And I know PAT already talked about it, but I feel like this situation is just like how they made a Ghostbusters movies with all four women, knowing that the original cast towards the cartoons, it was like four men. Even though they were white, it doesn't make the difference. But it seems like now we're trying to draw in trends just to make people feel happy, you know? Just
Right.
like how PAT stated, you know, about the whole Black Panther thing. I will tell everyone I was not one of those people who went in theaters, you know, who went to go see it on opening day. But a lot of people disrespect me about that because they felt that I had lost my blackness for not being part of that grand opening. But I tell everyone I'm still going to watch the movie regardless. And knowing me, I'm a nerd. So I enjoy watching movies regardless, me in theaters or outside of theaters. You know, that's just the nerd in me. So, and I just want to end quickly on my point and just state that, you know, until we talk about the origins of Superman, which I just broke it down very slowly and peacefully, you know, we're not going to move anywhere because the more we keep doing this, it's going to get, you know, it's like this whole stack effect. And here comes here comes another example of me being a nerd. So I believe the whole Miss Marvel thing also falls into like, I think they were fighting that battle of, because they wanted a Hindu type of superhero and they got one, but they used Miss Marvel and that name's now being thrown around and now it's being manipulated. So I feel like Superman's probably going to be that next person, even if we get this Black Superman movie or not. But towards when this movie come out, am I going to watch it? Yes, because I'm a nerd head. But will I feel very passionate about the movie? I'm gonna say no, you know, because until we're actually putting out films to represent something that is beautiful versus as, you know, making a dollar, because I mean everyone has to make their dollar, but we got to stop these trends of, you know, of, well, we got this ghost, like the original Ghostbusters movie was all men. Now we need all women now, you know, we need a Black Superman now. What's the next thing? Oh, we're going to need a Black Aquaman, and, you know, and it's going to keep going down and down until we satisfy everyone. And this is what
symbolic gestures. Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is what this is going to be. So even if the movie comes out, even if it doesn't, you know, I feel like we're still going to be back at square one. So that's just my take.
Okay, good stuff. So I think both of you touched on some really good points. Definitely. I agree with a fair amount that each one of you said. So just answering the question specifically, will this movie come to fruition? And if so, what will be the impact? So it could definitely come to fruition, right? As times have changed and the world is becoming a little more accepting than it's been in the past. You know, as Pat mentioned, by no means do I think that, you know, all inequalities are just going to go away before this movie comes out. That's not the case, right? But do I think that there are a lot of people who might have in the past been strictly opposed to going outside of the norm, especially with a character as important to the American society as Superman? I mean, when you think about it, he is the quintessential representation of white male supremacy, right? Um, and I think, you know, I know a lot of people are going to be offended when I say that, but when you think about the foundation of racism, it's wanting to make sure that the oppressed never feel enabled, right? And when you have a character like this, and I mean, as Pat said, there have been already multiple versions of this character, and there were at least 2 or 3 that were Black. So it's not like this is going to necessarily be a shock. But the point is, those characters have never been on the big screen before in any movie, right? There's an animation where it referenced one of those characters, but again, that's an animated cartoon. We're talking about bringing this to the big screen. We're talking about, you know, it's no longer something that people who feel that way, who have that underlying supremacy issue, they can't ignore it, right? And regardless of whether it's a part of the DCU universe or whether it's a part of, he's going to have own standalone universe he's going to be a part of, there are going to be enough closeted racists who are going to be offended by it because of what Superman generally represents. So yeah, it could definitely come to fruition. The impact is going to be that, it's going to play to the notion that, look, there's a Black Superman. The world has changed. America is not, it can't be two races of a country, because otherwise we wouldn't have a Black Superman. That's bullshit. Okay. Black Panther has been out for how long? And we're still dealing with some basic human rights that we don't get just because of being Black. Or, as you both know, I don't like that term Black per se, but, I'm going to use it because it's the colloquialism that's been given to us. But, at the end of the day, what I would say about this, as a fan of DC Comics, as a fan of all comics, but as a fan of DC Comics, I'm excited about the prospect of bringing out alternate characters from what they have in general, because they have been very, very behind MCU, to say the least, and their characters, especially the context and content and maturity of the characters, have been lackluster. So I'm excited from that aspect to see that they're considering other projects. Do I think part of it is pandering? Absolutely. And do I think that if they're going to do it, they better make sure that they put the right people on the staff? And I mean everything from the casting to the director to the producer to the fucking assistant that brings them coffee on the set. Okay? Right. Do your due diligence if you're going to release this film. Mm-hmm. Because this is not one that the Black community will sit idly by and let the bullshit pass. So if you're going to step out there, you better step out there correct.
So
yeah, that's my thoughts.
But now here come my question is, who the hell is going to play Batman then? That's now, I'm pondering on that now. So who played Batman in the new Justice League movie?
Still Ben Affleck.
My damn. DC, this is just coming from a nerd. You guys need to make sure that you find somebody else to play Batman, because I am not a Ben Affleck fan.
Oh man.
So
I can say allegedly, but yeah, I am not a Ben Affleck fan. You guys should have got Christian Bale, and he would have done a better job. I'm just saying, that's just coming from a nerd. But
no, I actually, to a certain extent, I actually agree with you there. I preferred Christian Bale's Batman to Ben Affleck's Batman, but they are a different time period slightly. Ben Affleck's Batman is the older, is about to retire, have lost Robin version, right? And so Christian Bale's Batman, even though technically in that third movie he does retire, it is a different time period. He's still, say, 35 to 40s, whereas Ben Affleck's Batman is supposed to be like pushing 50s.
Pushing 50. Like, and he's like a vet. He's a vet. Yeah. And it's based on the Dark Knight Returns.
Exactly.
Batman. So, but I'll tell you y'all straight up, I'm a fan of Ben Affleck's Batman. But we all have different opinions. But I just like Naya said, we have to realize like these are two different versions of Batman. Christian Bale's was one version, Ben Affleck is a different version.
Exactly.
And I personally think they both did a great job playing the versions that they played.
I think Ben Affleck did a great job in Batman versus Superman. Can't say that I agree for either one of the Justice League cuts. So I know this conversation is about Superman, but I just want to touch on this briefly. I loved that this movie from Zack Snyder was much better interpretation wise than the original Joss Whedon one. And I love that he went to add some depth to the characters that we didn't have in the first one.
Yeah.
The only issue that I have with Zack Snyder is that he has a serious editing problem. That freaking scene with the Flash where he's playing with the hot dog and saving the girl, it's like, dude, that scene is too fucking long. Cut that shit by 2.5 minutes and keep it moving. Okay, the same thing with the scene where Lois goes to get coffee and brings it to the cop. Like, dude, get the fuck. Cut that shit by half and we can talk. I think other than that, though, just everything, the reanimation of Steppenwolf, the scene with the Amazons in the beginning of the movie,
yeah, that was dope.
That he adds for all the characters, I loved it compared to the first.
All right, so I got a 4-hour movie I need to go watch.
Yes, you definitely need to watch it.
But yeah, definitely watch it. And here's the thing, because I'm hearing people talk about the length of time. I mean, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you could take a break. It's also broken up in
chapters.
In chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like watching a series in a
right.
way.
Shit.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
you don't have to sit and watch it all the way through.
So he might make up for Batman versus Superman. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great stuff, fellas. That was. I think we definitely wrapped that one up pretty well. So moving into the next subject, Cardi B WAP Grammy performance. So the question is, and I wanted us to keep this general because I know that there are many different ways that this can go. So I said, yeah, let's have a general question so everyone can hit on their points. So the official question is, what are your thoughts on Cardi's performance? So I'm going to go ahead and throw this to E-Man. What say you, sir?
Ah, man. So her songs they call it WAP, you know.
Mm-hmm.
For YouTube purposes, you know, I'm not going to spell out what it means because who knows? I'm trying to make sure we stay on the air no matter what. But when it comes to Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, and I'm letting everyone know I am not an avid listener of those two. Mm-hmm. And it has nothing to do because they're women. I'm just not into many of the modern acts. And that's just me. But most of the things that they definitely do on stage, especially like the dancing and all that, it's all basically, to me, and based upon my research and knowledge, that it's basically all just rituals that they do on stage. That's why it's always glam and whatnot. But I still feel it's another way to keep pushing this other narrative of sex in our face and whatnot. Yeah. And we all know sex sells because they do it in commercials. There's a long list of lines. They do it even with food products, Doritos, you name it, the list goes on, you know. But they're not going to tone down because everything they're doing are rituals, and they're not going to change what they do, you know. Do we know this is a sense of entertainment? Yes. But when it comes through the mind and how our brain registers everything that we see, you know, it still looks very disrespectful. And I believe Cardi B has a child. I think she stated that several times, I think in interviews, but it's still disrespectful, you know. I'm not disrespecting her, but they're not going to change anything. Just like how if we keep looking at everything that they've done in music, you know, but I feel between those two women per se, you know, they're always going to do something in that nature. And I told everyone I didn't watch it, but I've heard and saw a few clips of it. It's still not respectable, you know. And listening to other people's comments, they're feeling like, you know, they're pushing this type of huge sexuality towards, you know, young women and whatnot. And I wouldn't want to say the Black community, but on young Black women, And I feel this is the reason why, because to me, everyone, I wouldn't say everyone, but everyone, I'm not using everyone. I would say certain people, that sounds a lot better. So certain people, always have someone they want to look up to, everyone has an influence, others have role models, you know. There's people that I can't control that might see Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion as role models or influences. I can see more as an influence because now, the sex thing is, it's just good to be open and free. But people have to get the understanding that sex is just basically energy. So when you give off something, like they do on stage, you will always see these backlash because in the mind of not just the mass, but those who see it, they know, like, a young Black woman shouldn't be acting like that. In my eyes, I don't see Cardi B as a Black woman. She is interracial in my eyes, but others have their opinions. But to me, it's still going to be very disrespectful, and they're not going to change anything. And nothing's not going to change until we all choose to say no. But are we going to say no? No, because why? It's a form of entertainment that millions enjoy it. It even goes to the sense of, like, if I even use like porn makes $1 billion. All right. Does people watch it? Yes. Are they going to stop making it? No, because there's always money being driven from it. And that's what gets everyone into this whole thing. So until we stop this sickness and say no to it, then it's going to stop. But is it? And I still think it's not going to stop because everyone's enjoying, this, and it's going to just going to be the same revolving door that we keep talking about, and it's going to always stay open and never close. And that's just my take.
Yes, sir. Understood. Mr. PAT, what say you, sir?
So my thoughts on the performance is that it certainly matched up to the song titled Wet Ass P. we already know what the P stands for. don't need to spell it out.
I agree.
You know what OPP is?
Right.
I don't know why that popped into my head.
Same type of thing, but so we know what the P stands for. So I would say between what Cardi B and Meg was wearing, them being on a bed, and their physical performance overall, who wouldn't think of some wet ass P? I mean, that's the name of the song, WAP, W-A-P.
Mm-hmm.
The performance matched the title, and that's the point. I honestly don't hate it or love it. It's stripper rap. It's music for the strip clubs. It's adult entertainment. I understand how some people feel and why they see this particular song and the performance in a negative light. I get it. But what I would say is people shouldn't even have their children listening to Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion.
Ooh,
I agree.
Now, if they shouldn't even be having their kids listening to Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion. Now, if your daughters are listening to those two and are influenced by their actions, that's your fault as a parent. That's the parent's fault.
I agree.
At the end of the day, entertainers are not role models.
Oh,
I agree.
Shit, sir.
I just think it's asinine for anyone, especially parents, to expect that entertainers should be role models to their children. You need to raise your own damn kids.
I agree.
Raise your own damn kids.
Exactly.
You are not supposed to let celebrities raise them.
I agree. Keep going.
This is one of the many things that is wrong with society. When someone's child fucks up in life, they want to blame it on any and everything but themselves. I'm just being real. Like, they just want to blame it on any and everything but themselves, and it's crazy. So my question for anyone who does that is, where's your accountability?
Sir,
Where's
Oh,
your
man.
accountability?
we must have channeled the same damn thoughts.
I mean, it's
man.
yeah, but where
man.
is you just want to know where's the accountability? So I just to continue, I know that the Cardi B's and the Meg Thee Stallions of the world aren't necessarily what society would view as upstanding citizens, but I'm gonna take a little pivot real quick. But the reality is, while they might add to the fuel of the fire that we call slut culture, or what I like to call thought culture, they are still products of the environment. And this is an environment that, for better or worse, is very reptilian. Now, I say reptilian for quite a few reasons. Number one, we have three brains, one being the Homo sapiens brain, the other being the mammalian brain. I want to make sure I said that correctly, mammalian brain. And last but not least, the reptilian brain.
Yep.
Long story short, the reptilian brain is geared towards primitive drives such as thirst, hunger, sexuality, and being territorial. It is more or less geared towards self-preservation and survival, which leads to number two. When we talk about self-preservation and survival, the slut culture that is pervasive today didn't come out of nowhere. While we can argue that it has been around since the sexual revolution and probably before then, women nowadays are selling their bodies, not only on the streets, but on the internet. I mean, you have sites like Backpage that was around at one point in time. We have platforms like OnlyFans that is out there right now. So what does this have to do with survival? Well, there are many women out there who are struggling and they need to make ends meet. And as we all know, the economy has been vastly changing. And what that has done is created more adversity for everybody. Now, last but not least, number three, we've all seen God knows how many times Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion have been showing off their tongues. And it's not just
they
them.
need to keep it in their mouths too.
And it's not just them. That's the thing. It's not just them. It's other women out there who have been sticking their tongues out. They go on these social media platforms and basically there's pictures and video clips of them sticking their tongues out. So this kind of reminds you of a reptile, right? I mean,
I've had others say
it reminds you of a reptile. So I mean, I think that it is symbolic of what the environment of today is. Now, I'm gonna piss some folks off with this one, but I just gotta say it. I think it is indicative of toxic femininity. The same toxic femininity that people who, by and large, act like they are upset with Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion about. I mean, my overall thoughts is that the performance was what it was. Mm-hmm. I understand why it took place. The industry, the entertainment industry, or we could say the music industry, chose Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion and gave society what it wants. What does society want? It wants sex. As we all know, and as E-Man has stated already, sex sells. This is something we know. What we also know is that Black exploitation is one of the ways that the entertainment industry makes its bones. The entertainment industry, as we know, co-signs Black men killing Black men and Black women selling their bodies. So that soft porn, and yeah, I'm calling it soft porn performance that we saw on the Grammys, really, it was just yet another example of Black exploitation. So those are my overall thoughts on the WAP performance on the Grammys.
Okay.
I just want to touch on something, but I've been hearing and looked at just what's out there right now, but the whole tongue thing, what a few people shared with me, it has to deal with, like, you know, what a sheep is, you know how a sheep just has their tongue out.
So, right, that's true.
Yeah, a lot of just certain people's been telling me, like, that's that whole symbolic representation behind that. But I just want to put that in there. But
I think there's some credence to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can agree
so
with that.
interesting. So, okay, so firstly, let me just say that obviously, based on my response, I agree, Pat, largely with everything you said in regards to accountability. You two know me. That's my MO, right? In
Yes.
this world, everything is about accountability, one way or another. Taking
Yes.
accountability for yourself, for your actions, for what you experience in your life. Because while you may not be able to control every facet of what happens to you, you can control how you react to it. And so for me, there are many things going on with this. First of all, accountability from a parent perspective. There is not a single fucking person on this planet more responsible, let me say, for the morality of your child than you
Right.
as a parent. It's that simple.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If celebrities are raising your children, you're fucking up.
Yep.
We grew
Yep.
up in a time, okay, drastically different from our parents before us, because we grew up in a time where hip hop evolved to, having gangster rap and etc., where that was not necessarily what our parents experienced with hip hop. We grew up with NWAs and fuck the police and shoot a cop and etc. Did any of us go out and shoot a fucking cop?
Nope.
No.
No.
And it's the exact same notion that we need to pay close attention to with this whole Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion role models, and they shouldn't be behaving. That's bullshit. They shouldn't be your child's role model. I mean, what are we talking about here? This is common sense. I mean, we're not talking about, okay, I could see if you were talking about fucking Ariana Grande or something. This chick started out on Disney and etc. And so I can get it. Maybe your child, still watches that Sam and Cat show, and so she hears Ariana Grande and she gets excited, whatever. But the principle of the whole fucking thing is you should still be monitoring what your child is receiving.
Mm-hmm.
It's your responsibility as a parent. Cardi B is not your child's mother. Megan Thee Stallion is not your child's mother.
I agree.
Vice versa, these rappers are not your child's father. It's your responsibility to make sure that they're getting the right message and their morals and everything else is intact. Your responsibility as a parent. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is this notion of people forgetting how over sexualized Black women are in hip hop anyway. So when a woman does it, it's the end of the fucking world. But do you know how many male rappers have half naked ass women walking around their video the entire set? ASAP Rocky has a song, I Love Bad Bitches, That's My Fucking Problem. The whole song is literally about having sex with multiple women, and specifically in the video, Black women walking around half naked, barely fucking cloth to cover just the private parts, okay? Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, the over-sexualization that Megan and Cardi B are putting out is just too much for anyone to take. Get the fuck out of here. It's a double standard thing. It's that simple. Whenever women are comfortable with their sexuality, they are then, not thinking about the consequences, or they are then contributing to the degradation of young Black children. Well, that goes back to the first thing, motherfucker. Your celebrity should not be, and excuse me, but I'm super hype about this subject because it goes back to, all these double standards that Black women face. I mean, Black women are not, Black male or not, celebrities are not your child's role model. You should be as a parent. And I didn't hear all of this fucking uproar. Nobody was trying to cancel Madonna and Christina Aguilera when they fucking kissed on stage for the VMAs in 2003. They kissed.
Right.
I didn't watch that VMAs. I did hear about it in 2003. Yeah.
I remember
But-
seeing it and being surprised. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
shit.
When I heard about that, all I just said is it was just two European women kissing on stage. They were cool with it because I think it was on MTV.
I'm actually glad you said that, Emma. Exactly. You saw two European women kissing on stage on MTV. You did not see two women who are representative of the entire European congregation destroying the European respect factor for young women. That's what I'm saying. There are all these double standards when it comes to Black women in almost every facet of our lives, and the shit is exhausting. Those two are grown-ass women who made a song for grown-ass women. Your child shouldn't be affected by it because you shouldn't be allowing your child to listen to it in the first place. Now let's talk about where we are right now as a community in reference to all the OnlyFans pages and etc. Let me tell you this. Am I going to go and have an OnlyFans page? Absolutely not. Because my individual preference is that I'm going to be somebody's wife. My ass doesn't need to be all over the internet for everyone and their mama to see. That's for my husband's eyes, okay? But that's my individual thought on it. Do I think that every woman who has an OnlyFans page, Black or otherwise, is a disgrace to themselves or to their relationships or etc.? Absolutely not. I mean, you can't, individuals have the right to do whatever they feel necessary for themselves. The reality of it is, it's a moneymaker. OnlyFans is a moneymaker.
Now it's a moneymaker.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, people will pay these people to do shit like, not even, it doesn't even necessarily have to be sexual. I've heard stories about people who like get paid to just paint their toes. People are just watching them sitting there paint their toes. So this is a stream of revenue. It's no different than porn. Okay, look at Pinky and all the other famous porn stars and etc. that all of these people, they've become kind of like pop culture icons now, and they're porn stars.
I agree.
And I mean, it's the form of revenue. I'm not saying it's the form of revenue that everybody should, should inspire to choose, but to each their own. And for me, I'm over the double standards. I'm over it. I'm over this non-accountability bullshit. I'm over it. You're a parent, okay? Your child's morality, your child role model should be you. If it's not you, take a look back at yourself and figure out what the fuck you need to fix.
I agree.
Because you can't put all this responsibility on celebrities. With that being said, let me say this. At the end of the day, as far as Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion's individual performance, I'm going to say this. I know in my heart of hearts that they purposely intended to disrupt shit. And it's not because I think they're some kind of like women's freedom fighters. I don't. I just think they don't give a fuck. You can tell by their music.
They definitely don't give a fuck.
I'm told. This is what I keep telling. They don't give a fuck. So, and not even to cut you off, Nyan.
No, you're fine.
But them not giving a fuck, and we keep putting not just labels, but we keep calling people what there is, what they're not. Because to me, Cardi she's interracial. Even to me, Megan Thee Stallion is interracial in my eyes also too. But that's just me. But everyone keeps trying to place people where they don't need to be at. Because at the end of the day, they're going to still do what the fuck they want to do. But the thing that pisses me off even the most about not just their situation, but the children who are really bought into these two women, that's the thing that really drives me mentally insane.
But that's the point. How did children buy into this with in the first place with parents who were doing their fucking job and making sure that their children were not stepping out of their boundaries and their lanes. That's what I'm saying. That's the entire point.
Yeah,
If your child was, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat.
No, I was just saying something like that. If your children, if people's children are following, you know, somebody like a Cardi B or Meg Thee Stallion or whoever, that's on the parents. That's the parents' fault.
Exactly.
Because I don't want to hear about the Grammys being a family show or a family type of, you know, type of thing anymore. Because like I'm now putting as like the VMAs, all these award shows as adult stuff. Because I'm hating how the simple fact that they want to use this key term of family show that, you know, that it's okay. Because if they were doing stuff like that and gyrating and all that stuff on, I think they put it like on ABC, NBC when they put it on the Grammys, you know, if it's that like if you can access it on like a regular like cable channel, it should not even be considered, you know, as like a family type of network, or you got to pay to watch the Grammys.
Right, but you know, to that point though, Emmett, I'm just gonna keep shit a buck, right? I don't know any children who look forward to seeing the Grammys.
That's
I agree. Show in the first place. Like, I don't know why they keep trying to push that bullshit narrative of a family show. What fucking little kids in elementary or middle schools like, ooh, I can't wait for the Grammys to come on, mommy.
They're basically trying to get as much eyeballs on that TV as possible. I think that's why they say that. They just want to make sure they cast a wide enough net that it catches, that it grabs everybody. So they'll say some shit like, "Oh, this is a family event" or whatever. Right. Bullshit. We know that's bullshit.
Exactly. And I don't know any elementary school kids, middle school kids. I don't even know any high school kids, for that matter, who gives a shit about the Grammys. If a high school kid watched the award show, 9 times out of the 10, it was like the VMAs, because the VMAs were always a little closer to their demographic, not the fucking Grammys, just like the Oscars. The high school, those are adult award shows. The one with Nickelodeon with the slime was for the kids. Yeah, I forget what it was called, but the Nickelodeon, that was exactly that one, and the VMAs possibly, in my opinion, are the only freaking award shows that kids would give 2 shits about. They're not going to convince me that children were sitting around excited to see those fucking Grammys. And again, at the end of the day, the performance that they gave directly correlated with the fucking song.
Right. Yeah. And just before we get on to the next subject, I will say that I did mention toxic femininity, but what I will say is I can acknowledge that there definitely is a double standard. There, just like there is toxic femininity, as I've said before, there is some toxic masculinity as well within the industry. So I know, and they're 2 sides of one coin. So I understand why this performance took place. That's why the performance doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me because I understand. And honestly, Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion don't bother me either. Because I see dudes online basically talking about how slutty they are and how all this other shit and their image and how they're influencing Black girls the wrong way. You know, my thing is, as we have all said, Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion are for grown people. They are not for children. So that right there should cut all that out. They are for adults.
Period.
I mean, totally of course. Agree. But and just to end so we can move on to the next topic. So because I don't listen to them and whatnot, I never knew what WAP meant until I went to our high school. They were playing the song. Then because I've seen Cardi B like on TV. I know much about Megan Thee Stallion. Like I don't know nothing about that, whatever she is and whatnot. So, but when I heard her voice and whatnot, and I heard the song, because I've heard the the bass, the drop on the melody of the song, Then when I heard it, so I was like, that's what WAP means. I'm like, so if record labels are cool dropping this music out and knowing that, it's not hard to go buy, like music anymore. Like it's so easy now. Like before, we used to go to FYE and we used to go to music places. They actually go buy, a tape or CD, and if it would, and even if it had the little, what's the shit they put on, like, on the towards, is like, being very, if the music is dirty and whatnot versus it's clean.
It would give you the warning.
Yeah, the little warning label.
Parental advisory.
Yeah, parental advisory.
Right?
Yeah. But but you couldn't buy, that song, like you couldn't buy that tape or you couldn't buy that CD unless you had an adult with you and whatnot, That they actually told you, like, you have to be of a certain age to buy this. Now it seemed like it's so freely now to just buy things without like, parental, like, like even like the music, like on like iTunes and whatnot. Like I don't have an iTunes account and I don't know how much it works, but I do know the songs don't cost much. And once you put in an account, like once you put a credit card in account, it's very easy to buy things until you cut it off. So if parents are giving kids access to something that easy, it's not that hard for them to go on the computer and just type it up. But like we all agree, it does definitely go back to the parents.
Right.
But yeah, it still falls on the parents at the end of the day to monitor what your children are buying.
Yeah.
It's no different than the TikTok situation where at one point Trump was trying to cancel TikTok because he said it was negatively influencing children and etc. Like, dude, your children know wrong from right, or they should. As the parent, you should have taught them that. It's still your responsibility to make sure that they are actually adhering to your expectations. And if you say, don't you dare buy anything inappropriate on, Apple Tunes or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know. I'm an Android person. Android's fine. But but if your children are up there buying inappropriate music, that's still on you as a parent. You should know to a certain extent what your child is doing, and regardless of what the situation is, your child's morality and who they look up to as role models should be a reflection of you as a parent. It's that simple. But it's a great point. I definitely agree and understand to an extent where you're coming from, that yes, the material is readily available, whereas in our day, it was not as easily accessible. But at the same time, it boils back down to parents step up and do your job as parents. Because at the end of the day, your child, what they're exposed to is all on you.
Yep. Do your job.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Exactly. Okay. So moving into the next subject, and this one is a juicy one to me. So we're still on a controversial Black women, if you want to call it that, and we are talking about Stacey Dash and Black female conservatives. So I'm going to start this one out, if you gentlemen don't mind, and I'm going to read the question and I'm going to give my points, because I honestly think I probably have the least to say about this because I'm pretty straightforward on my perspective, I think. But the question is, should the Black community forgive Stacey Dash? So to me, that's up to the individual, because I'm all about accountability, right? She has made claim recently that she basically felt forced to be the angry Black woman. Her specific statement was, "That's not who I am anymore." She says that she apologizes for her offensive comments as she no longer supports Donald Trump, and she quit politics and blames the network for typecasting her as the angry Black woman. Okay, here's the thing, but you knew what they were doing if that was the case, and you still chose to participate. So while it was making you money, it was okay. And to a certain extent, you didn't give a shit about the impact of it at that time. But now all of a sudden, you see the error in your ways and they made you do it. No, they didn't. You're a grown-ass woman. They didn't put a gun to your head and make you do it. You chose to do it. You chose to make your comments that you knew were just absolutely ridiculous. And for me, you know, I don't like people who try to avoid accountability. You're a grown-ass woman, okay? You made your decisions. Now, at the same time, this kind of relates back to me to cancel culture. At the end of the day, if someone wants to forgive Stacey Dash because she's seen the error in her ways and make a change, who am I to say to them, no, don't do it? You know, that's on that individual. Me personally, I don't give a shit about Stacey Dash one way or the other. So I don't care what her views are or aren't. For me, she's very similar to Candace Owens. I would hear their arguments out because I'm going to hear anyone's arguments out. That's the nature of having good dialogue, is that you have to be able to listen and respond, not just, you know, respond. That's the point. But for me, she's very similar to Candace Owens in that, believe it or not, there are some things that they've touched on that have some truth to it. But at the same time, their overall notions that all Black people behave this way or all Black people behave that way, that's my issue with the Stacey Dashes and the Candace Owens of the world. You're doing the very shit that you claim you're trying to negate when you put blanket stereotypes on all Black people, bruh, which is what the Republican Party does, but all the political parties do it one way or another. I happen to be independent. I do not register with any type of political party. I don't even particularly register with independents. I pretty much don't trust any of you motherfuckers. And
I trust the Green Party though. You know, I'm about the universe and about, you know, cleaning up the world. But
listen, I'm about actions. I don't care about your words. Show me what you mean. I don't affiliate with any political party because I don't want to hear what you have to say. I want to see what you actually do. Mm-hmm. And so for me, this just boils down to yet another time where someone has to eat their words and are trying to place blame on something else other than their own actions. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't give a shit enough about Stacey Dash to care whether or not she is apologetic about her behavior in the past, because in my opinion, it's irrelevant. She has not done, nor will she do anything in the future, in my opinion, that is going to be everlasting affecting for our community. So I don't care. And that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this to Pat. What say you, sir?
All right, so my head's pretty much where your head is at in regards to this. So what I'll say is, I can't speak for the Black community as a whole, but for me, forgiveness, when we talk about forgiveness, it isn't something that I've given much thought about. Stacey Dash didn't, at least to my knowledge, didn't commit some heinous crime that would have the idea of forgiveness really come to mind, at least not for me. What I will say is she just needs to stay where she is and just keep it moving. As a result of her actions and statements in the past, it would seem that she didn't fully embrace the Black community or really wasn't too big on standing on her Blackness. I mean, she said it herself that she is not about identity politics. Okay, fine. That's her opinion, whatever. At the end of the day, my verdict on Stacey Dash is Stacey Dash played herself. She literally and figuratively got into bed with whiteness. And as we have all seen lately, it has backfired on her. Stacey Dash, like the Black folks before her, simply got her Negro wake-up call. She is obviously attractive. and has always been known for her looks.
I like that term.
The Negro wake up call. Yeah, that's what she got when she got fired. She got the Negro wake up call, and I believe it was Paul Mooney who came up with the term.
Mr. Mooney.
Yeah, Mr. Mooney. So so as we all know, she's obviously attractive. I know that she was doing her thing in Hollywood for a quick minute, and she was accepted in white spaces, one of them being Fox News. She wanted to be the Black female Republican. I don't think anybody put her up to it. Exactly. Or like you said, Naya, nobody put a gun to her head and made her be the Black female Republican. She chose to be that. Plain and simple. She wanted to be the Black female Republican. And while Fox might have got some mileage out of that, they ultimately showed her the door. That's what they did. They showed her the door. I mean, it straight like that. Fox News, being the organization that they are, showed her real quick that she is expendable. She was just the Black tool that they needed to fool the viewers into thinking that they're not racist. Stacey found out that racist people do have quote unquote Black friends. In this case, Stacey Dash was simply the Black friend. Just like Candace Owens is the Black friend right now. When a racist white person wants to get their point across, especially nowadays, they simply show a Black person who co-signs their racist bullshit. Stacey Dash was that Black person, and when it's all said and done, they reminded her that she is still Black. Like I said before, I don't know about forgiveness. It's not a case for me where I need to forgive her because she didn't do anything crazy like that, really. But I will say that she shouldn't be coming to the Black community for forgiveness if that's what she's trying to do. Defying Black people and then trying to get back in good graces with Black people after getting that Negro wake-up call, it's not a good look, sis. It's just not a good look. Blackness is not something where you could flip it on and off like a light switch.
Exactly.
Now, I personally don't dislike her or wish her any ill will, but when it's all said and done, there has to be some type of code of conduct amongst Black people, a code of conduct where we don't sell each other out. Obviously, every Black person is not going to adhere to this, and every Black person has not adhered to this because people sell out all the fucking time, as we all know. But from what we've seen, trying to placate to white conservatives, or in some cases, white liberals, at the expense of Black people, it won't ingratiate you into the dominant society. The dominant society has no problem reminding their Black friend that at the end of the day, they are still Black. The name of the game is we need you to just be Black and make us look as unracist as possible. Don't get too out of order. That's not what you're here for. That's pretty much their stance when it comes to dealing with Black people. We'll let you in our space, but just remember, you're just the Black friend. That's it. Keep your mouth shut. I mean, you could talk, but don't say too much. Just let us do most of the talking and most of the thinking. So just to wrap it up, when it comes to the Black community forgiving Stacey Dash, I say that that's up to the individuals within the Black community. That's my overall point. You know, it's up to the individual. Some will forgive her and some won't. It is what it is. But just like you, Naya, I really don't care about her like that. So it doesn't, sway me one way or another. It is what it is.
Exactly right. All right, what say you, E-Man?
So for me, I mean, when it comes to forgiveness, that's not my place. That's their place. But at the end of the day, we don't save hoes. That's just, I've heard it in many rap songs, and Project Pack said it best, don't save her because you don't want to be saved. you know, because in my eyes.
Wait, real quick. Did you just quote my man?
Yes, I quoted. Yes, I did quote Project Pack on this one.
Don't save her.
Yeah,
Don't
save her.
Project
She
Pack,
don't want to be
don't
saved.
save her. She don't want to be saved. Reference for this. I love this. Okay, gold star for you, eBay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So that's just, you know, how I'm seeing it at, you know. And Stacey Dash, is she gorgeous? Well, of course. I mean, everyone knows that. But I mean, I don't really care, you know, for her forgiveness, because I don't know what she's really, you know, forgiving on, like, you know, towards like what she said or what she did. I mean, is she trying to become full graces for those who want her to be around? Because, you know, in my case, I don't know who she dated or things she's done towards, you know, in her life and whatnot. All I know is Stacey Dash is that chick who played a character, you know, on Clueless and whatnot. You know, that's how I know her as. But, you know, when you jump into things that don't, you know, if it's not you, you shouldn't jump into things like that. So she jumped into towards, I would say, an arena that she had no business being into. But there's certain people, you know, who want to do that. But, you know, she don't need to be saved. So I'm towards anything she's done, that's on her, you know. And she's gonna meet that with whoever the universe dwells upon her. But like, to me, I don't give a damn and whatnot. But on the other note, I feel like Stacey needs to just get her life together, go find herself a good guy, and get her life together. That's just me. Just, you know, because I mean, I haven't seen her in any new, like, you know, movies and whatnot, but she needs to get her whole life to like together and whatnot, you know. And then coming on to the other, you know, things about, you know, like in my mind, when I hear the terms like, you know, white conservative and white liberals, I just feel like those are titles people put themselves in to create another division. Because either way, I don't believe in white liberalism and I don't believe in white conservatism, because to me, it don't mean a goddamn thing. It's just people splitting each other so that, you know, you can't be part of their party. You know, it's just this whole thing, because it's all about, you know, acceptance and accountability. Once you accept it, you know, once you do something, like Nia Angel said, the accountability of what you do, you know, it's all up on you. And in this case, Stacey Dash, you fucked up, and you fucked up on yourself. So, like, I'm gonna leave it as Project Pack said. We can't be saving hoes because hoes don't want to be saved. It's just that simple, you know? And I'm just leaving, like, I don't know what else to say. Like, we need to stop saving these hoes. That's what we just need to stop doing. No? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, Project Pack, thank you for making that song, though. You helped out a lot of people in the like 99 and 2000, man. Thanks to you.
You are something else, man. Okay. So good stuff, fellas. Good stuff. I think I definitely agree with certain parts of both of your points there. Again, you know, I just don't care enough about what the chick does to really spend too much energy on her.
I think she just needs to find a new, like, I think she just needs a black guy to go just meet her, like, I think she just needs to go find herself a Tyrone. That's what I think she needs to go find herself. A Tyrone, you know?
Lord, okay.
You find a Pookie or a Ray Ray.
That can work too.
All right. So, fellas, next subject is Mrs. Sharon Osbourne and the whole debacle with Cheryl Underwood on their show, The Talk. This was kind of like a follow-up to the Meghan Markle discussion we had, because it's about that Meghan Markle interview. And the specific question that we're going to be discussing is, was Sharon Osbourne's breakdown legitimate or an example of a white privileged temper tantrum? So just to make sure that we're all on the same page here about what portion of this we're talking about specifically, we're talking about the fact that Sharon Osbourne supported some comments made by a friend of hers, Piers Morgan, who specifically said this about the Meghan Markle interview. He said, "Who did you go to? What did they say to you? I don't believe a word she said, Meghan Markle. I wouldn't believe a weather report if she read it." So at some point on one of the shows, Sharon Osbourne defended that. Her and Cheryl Underwood got into it, just so you all have the overall understanding of what we're talking about specifically. So again, the question is, was Sharon Osbourne's breakdown legitimate? Okay, because basically she was being called a racist because she supported Piers Morgan, who people were called a racist, and she had a breakdown on the show and everything else. Or was it a white privilege temper tantrum? I'm going to go ahead and throw that to you, E-Man.
So Sharon Osbourne, so she's the lady who's married to, seems like Ozzy, and this reminds me of something that happened years ago with her. I think, I'm not too sure, but I want to get this right. I know she used to do The View, I believe, and I think she also had the same issue that came up, something close to this, but I think it was something that she said versus as agreeing on someone's notion. But none of this is shocking and none of this is surprising, but towards whatever tantrum she had, that was basically, her just basically trying to fall into, it's the guilt, of things that they can't come back from. And what I mean by that is basically that you said something or something you said, and then you have a lot of people around you that don't agree with it. So you basically crying or some type of, lower emotion, to make you feel like what you did was wrong. She said what she wanted to say, and that's not going to change anything. She agreed what she wants to agree on. So that's not going to change anything. But towards the many people on the panel with her probably didn't agree with it, and that's what happened the first time in her first incident, that almost cost her job. So none of this is shocking. None of this is surprising. And I think for me, I don't care less about Sharon. To me, I don't think she's a bad person. I don't know her, but physically it's not hurting me. Mentally it's not hurting me, but psychologically, is she gonna take responsibility, towards what she agrees on, or just have these tantrums or walk away, say negative things and not own up to what you're saying, because to me, I feel like this is a whole thing going back to accountability, because she's not being accountable what she's agreeing on. She's trying to cop out and hide from what she agrees on. Towards Piers Morgan, I don't care about him and whatnot. And many people will always label people towards who they are. So, and that's not going to change. So it's just like the same shit that we talked about last week. And I'm gonna just end my notion on this. Now, I remember calling Oprah a hole and Megan a mongoose. Now, I feel like this situation is just basically, it's like another silly fight. And basically, Sharon's basically running away from it. So just by answering the question, does her privilege per se helps her out? Well, of course, because at the end of the day, did anything change? No. Does she even need to like go out there and like put herself out there again? She probably doesn't need to, because basically that tantrum basically just said, basically, I can say whatever I want. I can agree who the fuck I want to, and nothing's not going to change. So yeah. And that's how I'm going to leave it as that.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood, sir. So, Mr. PAT, let's say you, sir.
All right, let me just say this. I don't give a shit about Sharon Osbourne or what's that show? Was it The View or The Talk? Okay, The Talk. See,
I thought it was The View. That it called The Talk?
No, I think it's The Talk this happened on. I think The View is the one with Whoopi Goldberg and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, but she was also on that show also too.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I get those two shows mixed up.
Me too. I don't watch either.
That just shows how much I give a shit about those shows also. But so I'll say this. Sharon Osbourne's breakdown was not legitimate. If we're gonna answer the question of was Sharon Osbourne's breakdown legitimate or a white privileged temper tantrum, it was a white privileged temper tantrum. The thing is, her boy Piers Morgan got called out on his racism. The video clip that we watched said Cheryl Underwood challenged Sharon's defense of Piers Morgan. The thing is, if you align yourself with a racist, then you might be taken to task about that. Some people might pull up and ask, why are you friends with a racist? It's that simple. If you're saying or you're putting out a type of energy that says, oh, I'm not a racist, but you hang out with a racist, then guess what? People gonna pull up and they're gonna ask you, why are you hanging out with this person? Or why are you defending this person? Mm-hmm. It's really that simple.
I agree.
Sharon Osbourne's white fragility came to the surface. She was basically on some, how dare this black woman challenge me type shit. Basically,
no, she was thinking that in her head though. I didn't know that.
Yeah, basically, how dare this black woman challenge a white woman type shit. Unfortunately, this is the behavior of, as Neely Fuller calls people like her, suspected white supremacists. And it's the behavior of outright racists. When a black person challenges them, they get real indignant, they get real self-righteous, and they get real condescending. And the part that really makes that clear to me is the part where Sharon said to Cheryl, and don't try and cry, because if anyone should be crying, it should be me. So that clearly showed me that Sharon Osbourne was letting Cheryl Underwood know where she stands in the racial pecking order. Mm-hmm. First of all, who are you to tell someone that they shouldn't cry? Who are you? Like, why?
When it's the very thing you're doing.
Right. It's like, who the fuck are you to tell somebody that they shouldn't cry, but then say, oh, no, I'm the one that should cry.
There you go.
Who the fuck are you? So, I mean, as we all know, crying is a human emotion. It just boggles me. It just really boggles my mind how someone could tell someone not to cry and then say that they should be the one crying. Sharon Osbourne talked to Cheryl Underwood in that way because she understands the society that we live in and how whiteness trumps blackness. Sharon understands her power and privilege as a white woman. Society props them up. They can be the damsel in distress. She knows that society would rather see the white woman cry instead of the black woman cry. So Sharon Osbourne used that to her advantage, and she took on a victim role, although she wasn't even a victim. But see, that's what the Karens of the world do. They cry and expect the world to cater to their needs. It doesn't matter who else is truly a victim or who has been disadvantaged. Once they call 911 or the manager, they expect their cries to be catered to at the expense of others. And just as a sidebar, Kevin Frazier, he was out of pocket for calling on Black women to educate Sharon Osbourne. And actually, Amanda Seales addressed him. Amanda Seales addressed Kevin Frazier for that on her Instagram page. Now, I understand his intentions, but at this point, Black people, Black men and Black women do not need to educate any white person on racism. The white people who are racist need to go educate themselves. Straight up. That's how I feel. They go educate themselves. We don't need to be educating anybody. That shouldn't be our responsibility. So I just think we really have to stop with the kumbaya nonsense. Real talk. We just need to stop with it.
I definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting what you just said about that guy saying something to educate, Sharon Osbourne on on the Black woman itself. But I feel like that's another cop out again,
Mm-hmm.
It's always about, and this is why I'm trying to keep very strong with my words and make sure they're very clear and concise. It's crazy how he had the right, and basically, towards we have the right to say what you want to say, towards the freedom of expression. But just in the sense of you saying that to tell them, you need another Black woman to educate you. I'm like, education's everywhere. So you should be taking upon yourself to educate for yourself.
Yeah, educate your damn self. Really,
but here comes the thing. They feel like, they don't want to do it, but we have to do it for them. And this is the same construct I talk about with people who are on a daily basis. Is like, the reason why there's so much friction is because we don't want to have these conversations respectfully. You guys want to, I wouldn't say be disrespectful, but you want to start a conversation, agree with something, but don't talk about why you agree on it, because now someone disagrees with something you say, and then you lose your motherfucking mind. And that's why I don't like dealing with people like Sharon, because she's done this twice and it's going to keep going on again, and she's going to keep hiding from her own truth. Because
the reality of it is, these people don't want to have the truthful conversations, because the truthful conversations are going to force them to evaluate themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
At the end of the day, when you have to have a truthful conversation like this one, when you have to have a conversation like, look at yourself, look at the person you're defending, and really take a second to think, maybe I'm defending this person because those are my views as well. And when you have to face that as a human being, again, boils down to accountability. That pulls you out of your comfort zone. People don't like to leave their comfort zone.
You need to get out your damn comfort zone.
And that's the problem.
Right.
That's the problem. Yeah. And so my issue with this whole thing, and first of all, let me specifically answer the question. Was Sharon Osbourne's breakdown legitimate or a white privilege temper tantrum? I'm actually going to say it was both, and I'm going to elaborate on what I mean. It was a legitimate white temper tantrum, because in her mind, she honestly does not believe she's racist for supporting a racist. She's saying to herself, I'm on a show with Black co-hosts. Shit, I have Black friends. I have 2 or 3 Black friends with, let me put a little note out there. If you know how many fucking Black friends you have, don't ask yourself whether or not you're racist, okay? So, but anyway, she's probably saying to herself, I have Black friends. I'm on a show with Black co-hosts. How can I be racist? Just because I supported someone who made racist comments. Yeah, because admitting that you're a racist, it pulls you out of your comfort zone, which that's what a lot of white people don't want to do. Like, that's the reality of it. I'm going to be supportive of the Black community to a certain extent. I'm going to be supportive of the Black community or this cause or that cause as long as it doesn't disrupt my comfortability. And that's the problem here. Cheryl Underwood called her out on the fact that she supported someone who made those comments about a Black woman sharing the fact that she felt suicidal, that she cannot comfortably say he would have made those same comments about a white woman sharing her suicidal thoughts. And that's the problem here. I mean, you all know how I feel about the Meghan Markle interview, where I said, yes, I believed her, but I thought she took the safe route. I believed her, but I felt like she had a duty to share more than she did for the care and love she was asking for, right? She was asking for the world to see her struggle, to understand her struggle, but wasn't necessarily sharing with us some important aspects to help us meet that connection.
Right.
However,
but she's a mongoose. That's what she is.
However, not once did I say or completely disregard her feelings, her suicidal feelings, or the things that she commented on. Because who is anyone to do that to that woman? Whether she was white, Black, Spanish, or etc., being a part of the monarchy alone is stressful. Mm-hmm. And so to disregard her statement in general, yeah, that's to me, that was extremely ridiculous and outrageous on Piers Morgan's part. And anybody who supported that is an asshole. I'm sorry, she was an asshole for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the temper tantrum and the breakdown that she had was another example of her being an asshole, and not understanding this white privilege that allows Piers Morgan to say something like that and claim he just doesn't like Meghan Markle. That's complete bullshit. It doesn't matter whether you like her or not. You don't dismiss someone's suicidal thoughts, bro. That's complete bullshit. Doesn't matter if they're Black, white, Spanish, or otherwise. So for you to say it the way you did, especially after you watched the interview and etc., and then you went on a talk show to say it, that shows consciousness. That shows you knew that you were going to be offensive and you just didn't give a fuck, which is a form of the white privilege that the both of them have.
Right. Yeah, he knew.
I mean, of course they know, and they definitely know, and they're not gonna change their behavior because in their minds they don't have to change their behavior. And just by everyone listening, I just want y'all, so I'm gonna repeat it again. What I mean by that, they don't want to change their behavior. Like Piers Morgan probably is worth millions. Like, you know, he knows he can say whatever he wants and not much is going to change towards what goes on in his life. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like Sharon, she's on this, talk show, maybe because, I know she don't need a job. So we all know that. But, no one's not going to change. You can't change your behavior unless you change your environment. And many of these people chooses not to change their environment. So it's all about changing your environment. All right. Because if you look at the word behavior, be and have, be means yourself. So anything you do, is based upon your environment. Till you change your environment, then you can become a better person, because your environment is your surrounding. And Sharon's not going to change that. Mm-hmm. And is she hurting me at the end of the day? No, she's hurting more of herself. She has to look herself in the mirror every day and deal with that pain and that struggle. But she chooses not to because she prefers coexisting just because that gets her by every day, And what I mean by coexisting, that I can come to work, but I can work with a Black woman. Because we're coming to work every single day, she feels like, me and Cheryl are friends and whatnot, because we come to work every day and we do our job. But here comes the thing. Many people go to work, Many people have co-workers they hate. Many people go to work, they hate their own bosses, you know. But do you consider as somebody that, as you know, as a acquaintance or a friend? Probably not. You know, it's just you coexisting to make sure, like, you know, I got this I got to do. I got bills to pay. I'm not worried about them. You know, this is what's getting us not to move or elevate to the next thing. That is the huge issue. But this whole sharing thing is going to be another rose. It's this we got this revolving door and whatnot. Because when I tell people I do not believe in racism, but I believe in discrimination, because you always pick and choose what you choose to hate and dislike. And your environment's going to help you become better so that you'll know that you'll know who you are as a person, you know, because Sharon knows who she is as a person, you know, and the whole cop out thing that I hate towards, you know, you got black friends like that's you stating something that you know you don't have anything, because you don't have to state something that you already have, you know, because if I own, like an example, if I go home and I pay mortgage on a house, you know that you own a house and whatnot, you know. Huh? It's up to you if you want to share, you know, about what's, you know, how big my house is, but you know where you're at, you know. You don't have to tell people where you're at, you know.
Well, let me just make something clear, especially because of your statement. You don't believe in racism. So
That's an interesting statement.
that's an
All right,
interesting
so
statement.
I'm gonna tell you.
And
I'm
I
gonna
just
tell you
want
the
to,
reason why. I'm gonna tell you the reason why.
well, hold on really quickly. I just want to say that, because I know we're on the subject of Sharon Osbourne. This could take a a little detour here.
Yeah.
So just again, I want to throw out there that our statements on any subject are individual, not representative as the group as a whole. That's for any one of us on any subject that we're discussing, and it is never our intent to offend anyone. This is a forum for us to share our opinions on these matters. I just want to throw that out there to our audience. Go ahead, sir.
All right. So when you look at the origins of the word racism, it comes from the word race. All right. So a race is a contest. All right. The reason why I don't believe, because they have us in this illusion that we're all running this same race, you know, and this race, you know, and when you look, and I've coached track. So if you look at a track, it is circular. All right. It has no continue. I mean, it has no end unless you put an end to it. You know, that means you're starting somewhere. You can keep running around that circle for hours until you choose to stop. You know, Dr. Claude Anderson and his book, I believe his book shares a lot more of this about him. But what I've learned from him in seeing that they put us into illusion to divide us and hate each other, not for reasons that doesn't mean anything, but they're creating problems and situations based upon us hating each other. So an example basically be like, and I'll use something very simple. All right. Um, I'll use basically let's see. I'll use like Cheryl Underwood and whatnot, Now, Cheryl spoke up because she knows, Piers Morgan is basically he don't like black people. You know what I'm saying? I know that, because he hates them, because he knows what he is and he know who he's are, and he's not going to change that, Just like how everyone said how Ellen disrespected everyone, towards who was working for her and whatnot. Discrimination comes from hate, because you can build hate and you can tell people, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. Because discrimination is based upon a culture. Like you can bring it down from a culture, a thing, a place, you name it, Because, Piers Morgan's not running a race. But The situation I'm trying to get is that we're trying to use a word that we're not using in the right context. And that's the easiest way I can explain. But when we talk about hate, it all comes from discrimination. Because you can break down more and more things, around the circle. Because so just to get everyone towards what I said, so hopefully that's a better picture towards what I'm saying. Because I tell everyone I'm using the word in the correct context, not in the context that I would say that we were taught, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that's why I'm always choosing my words correctly so everyone can get what I'm truly understanding.
No, so I get what you mean. I think this is a case where it's going to boil down to what definition of the word you accept.
Right.
Because some people accept racism as having the ability to oppress a certain group of people based on their race, right? And I think, and then there's, of course, other definitions of the word racism. I think this is a case where it's not a right or wrong, but it's going to be per understanding or per belief of what the word racism means, right? Because I think it's important to note that there is, for some folks, even a difference between regular racism and systemic racism, right? And that could be generalized as all the same thing, and it's different. Some people feel like people who are racist, like, people who don't have any major impact are just generally racist, like this next topic that we're about to be on with this guy in Oklahoma, versus systemic racism, where you have like people in positions of power specifically taking actions to oppress certain races of folks.
Yeah.
And so I think it depends on the individual perspective of the word racism. I know this is not one of our official subjects to discuss today, but I just wanted to say that. And Pat, I think you wanted to say something as well.
Yeah, just a brief, just to cap it off, because I know we got to get to the next subject. So, I mean, the racism term, that's probably an episode in and of itself.
Agreed. Agreed.
So just to briefly touch on that, racism is systemic racism, all one thing. It's based in power and privilege. And nowadays, myself, including others, are starting to have adopted the view that racism is synonymous with white supremacy. So, and I already unpacked, what white supremacy racism is on the Meghan Markle segment. So I don't need to really go further into that. But that's how I view racism. But just going back to educating white people, at the end of the day, that's not what we're here for. That's not what Black people are here for. There doesn't need to be any summits, any meetings. There doesn't need to be any of that. We're not here to hold hands and sing "We Are the World." And it's crazy. It's crazy because this also reminds me of an article that was written by somebody named Jonathan Capehart, basically saying something along the lines of Black people not needing reparations, but an apology instead. He said, "I bet you an apology is what African Americans want most." That is absolute bullshit.
Right.
The reason I brought that up, because of course I'm not going to go too deep into that. People could look that article up if they want. But the reason I brought that up is because stuff like that won't stop racism. All it does is fuel the fire. Nothing actually gets fixed. So what I want to say is these kumbaya Negroes need to stop with the bullshit. Real talk, stop with the bullshit. We're not here for the kumbayas. The Sharon Osbournes of the world don't need Black people putting on a cape and coming to rescue her from her white privilege. White people like her would need to do the work on their own. It's that simple. They need to do the work on their own. We're not here to save people, period. Because the Sharon Osbournes of the world, the Piers Morgans, or whichever other racist that's out there, they know better.
Exactly.
Even if we might, if some people might not think they do, these people know better.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the saying, if you knew better, you do better.
Exactly.
So these people just need to do better. Straight up, do better. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
No, great points. And I'm sorry, what was you saying, man?
No, just something really quick to touch on. I get it with the whole reparation thing, but many people don't know that, you know, people got reparations for the Holocaust and they still talk about that, and even towards Native Americans. But I just want to put that information out there.
Right. No, exactly. And not just that,
Black people need
also
reparations.
Exactly. No, but also even Asian Americans after the internment camps that they had during the World War II situation, you know, after that situation occurred and they put Asian Americans in internment camps and etc., there were reparations for that too. The Black community is the only group that hasn't received reparations yet. No one should be speaking on behalf of everyone in any situation. And to really quickly touch on Pat's point, I absolutely agree. This notion that someone needs to educate people on racism is bullshit. This is 2021. This is the information era. Okay, there's information everywhere and at the palm of anyone's hand with easy touch. It is not my responsibility to make grown ass people aware of racism. They already are. They're choosing to ignore it because, again, it pulls them out of their comfort zone. Human beings need and love comfort zones, and when some of them have to step out of it, they reject whatever's on the outside of that box. Well, that's fine. That's your decision, but take some accountability for your actions, and don't be surprised if I punch you in your fucking face if you call me a nigga. It's that simple.
Oh no!
Right? You think
oh no! I might have to like do the whole like.
And because of our friendship, that means, you know, you're going to you think that that's going to allow you certain things, and I'm going to relate that back because, again, that's people making conscious decisions and then being surprised by reactions. And you stepped out of your comfort zone and etc. to learn about this. So now you think that gives you a certain privilege and you want to play innocent to certain shit. You're going to face the consequences like everyone else is. Do all of it. Be both things. Step out of your comfort zone because it's the right thing to do, but be respectful about it because it's the right thing to do. That's my point. So I think you both made great points. I think we need to probably table this for a whole separate session.
I feel like we need to do that as a whole 1 hour session. Yeah. That's what I think.
This subject is definitely worthy of its own attention. So I say let's mark this down definitely to discuss at a later time. So we got 2 subjects left, fellas. Let's dive in and get to those, because definitely some very interesting topics. And actually, E-Man, you know, those comments were a great segue into our next topic, which was the sports announcer from Oklahoma. Okay, his name is Matt Rowan, who called some high school Black female athletes niggers after they kneeled during the national anthem during the game. His excuse is that he has diabetes. And he says he never would have made the comments that he made if it wasn't for the fact that his blood sugar was so low.
My man had too much sugar in his tank. He had too much sugar in the tank.
Oh, he didn't have enough sugar in his claim. He said his blood sugar was too low.
Oh, so he was on E.
Yeah. So, he was getting right. So the official question is, What are your thoughts on this situation? And fellas, I'm actually going to go first because this is very simple for me. Okay. This is what this man specifically said. He said, they're kneeling fucking niggers, excuse my expletives, you all, I'm repeating this particularly. They're kneeling fucking niggers, he said, while he thought his microphone was off. He followed that up with, I hope Norman, that's the name of the high school that the girl's on. I hope Norman gets their ass kicked. Fuck them. I hope they lose. Come on, Midwest City. They're going to kneel like that? Hell no. Those were his exact words verbatim. So let me say this, because my point is going to be short and fucking simple. The notion that he only made those clearly racist ass comments because he was experiencing low sugar due to his diabetes is complete and utter offensive to my intelligence, malarkey bullshit.
I can't believe they let him say that.
It's absolutely ridiculous, and he's racist, plain and simple. There's no other way to put it. There's no confusion about it. The diabetes reference is bullshit. I'm not even going to deep dive too much beyond that because we shouldn't have to. The notion is preposterous. Ailments don't cause inherent racism, okay? That shit is bred, it's taught, and it's kept, okay? Period. And I'm honestly glad he did it. I'm going to finish up with this. This is how quick my response is. I'm honestly glad that he did it because he exposed himself. And I like when racists expose themselves.
Yeah,
don't be racist undercover. Be racist out in public for me. I like that shit. Because then I know who I'm dealing with.
Exactly. Show your real face.
Period. But other than that, that's actually all I have to say about this, with one last thing. Fuck Matt Rowan and the stupid racist horse he rode in on.
That's what I'm talking about.
Period. And so I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you, PAT. What say you, sir?
I 100% agree with everything you said. And I'm going to be simple and straightforward with it as well. My thoughts is that it's a racist being a racist. It's really that simple. It's a racist being a racist. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. It's just one of those things. What I'll add to that is that some of these same people, these same racists that we're talking about, the Matt Rowans of the world and whoever else, these people are cowards. And I say that they're cowards because they won't own up to the fact that they are racist. It's like, dude, if you're racist, just be real about it. Just say that you're a racist. It's really that simple. Don't try to backtrack. Once you get caught, be straight up with it. What people like him do is they make a racist comment and then try to backpedal with excuses. They make these dumb excuses about why they said what they said. The fact of the matter is they know what they said and they wanted to say it. Nobody put a gun to their head. Nobody made them say it. They said it, they wanted to say it. Plain and simple. How they feel is something that is deeply rooted within them. All it really takes is certain situations for them to show how they truly feel. And those situations will bring their true feelings to the surface. So this Matt Rowan guy said he thought his mic was off and that he's a diabetic and his sugar spiked or his sugar was low or whatever. I'm pretty sure if someone was not a racist, they wouldn't be concerned about whether the mic is on or off while talking. Regardless of the mic being on or off, they're going to be who they are. They wouldn't even have to worry about saying anything reckless. In regards to diabetes, I know quite a few people who are diabetics. I even have people in my family who are diabetics. And I'm sure all of us do. A lot of people know people who are diabetics because diabetes is a common thing. To my knowledge, diabetes doesn't make someone have outbursts. So when these
racist one.
So when, yeah, it doesn't make anyone have these outbursts or whatever we want to call it. So when these incidents occur, the people who say racist things aren't sorry for saying it. Really, they're sorry that they got caught.
Exactly.
If they wouldn't have got caught, then there'd be no apologies. So they're not sorry that they actually said it. They're just sorry that they got caught. Really, Matt Rowan is sorry that his microphone was on. That's it. He wasn't sorry about the comment. I don't give a fuck what he says. Him and people like him are just sorry for the fact that it got into the open. That's
Period.
it. So
Period.
Just to end it off, I personally never lose sleep over these incidents, because when it's all said and done, racism is sewn into the fabric of American society. It's also global. With that being said, a lot of people are racist. That's something that unfortunately we have to come to grips with. Some people will be more in the closet with it, while others will be out of the closet with it.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of people being in the closet, I actually have an article on my website, thepatchannel.com, called Top 10 Personality Traits of the Closet Racist, aka the Sleeper Cell. The link to that article will be in the description, so be sure to check that out when you all get a chance. Anyone can read that article and they will get a crash course on how people like Matt Rowan operate. So, ending it off, these days, nothing surprises me. These incidents happen often enough, and the media is going to do what the media does. They're just going to put it out there and get people all riled up. That's really what's going on.
Agreed. E-Man, what says you, sir?
Well, before I start, as Ludacris said in one of his songs, "You's a hoe, you is a hoe." So, Matt Rowan, you is a hoe.
Oh,
a hoe.
He is on with the hoes today, ain't he? He don't want to save no hoes. Matt Rowan a hoe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whole ass shit going on.
There's a lot of whole ass shit going on. Mm-hmm. So, I definitely agree with you guys. I'm not going to change anything y'all said, but and to use being diabetes, there's people who suffer from diabetes. My grandmother died from complications of diabetes, and it's crazy. Oh, you didn't hear that?
Sorry.
No, I've said I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, she died in 2014. But for this man to use a lot of people who suffer from something, but if you definitely need help from it, definitely put just leave it. Just let us know down in the comments on YouTube if you need help with diabetes. I can definitely help you out with that. But he uses that for a word that, to be honest, that is commonly used down south a lot by many, Europeans, white Europeans, a lot. And Oklahoma is considered as, they don't consider it as it's being one of those deep southern states, but it is southern,
And racist too.
I agree too. Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree. Places like Arkansas, Like you name it all down to this is they're gonna say that, you know, that's common talk is what most of them might say, you know, but this ain't common at all. No. So is he gonna lose his job? Well, I don't know. I mean, if he was an announcer for a high school game, like he ain't getting paid much to do that.
I want to say that he already did lose his job.
Yeah, he most likely lost it, but
Yeah.
he'll probably get transferred.
Finally, we finally got not justice, but the man got the boot. I would have booted him like during the game and tell him, you come back over here, I'm locking you up in a jail cell, you hoe. That's what you're supposed to say, you know. But just ending on a quick note that Mr. Matt Rowan, if you are listening or if you are out there, I hope that you come learn from this situation to do better and be better and stop using a cop-out, like using because you got diabetes that made you do what PAT said, you outbursting, you know? So, because I don't know many diabetes that be outbursting and be yelling and screaming, you know? I don't know too many diabetics. So if you telling me something that I need to go read up on and I do some research on, please let me know, because I never heard about diabetes being outbursts and just yelling, you hoe. So I'm glad your hoe ass lost your job, and I hope you learn from this, fool. I hope you learn from this. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Gotcha. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, okay. I think, you know, we pretty much hit that nail on the head. We're all in agreement that this asshole is racist, and there's no, you know, if, ands, or buts about it. He thought his mic was off while he had his racist tirade. Is that simple? He just simply got caught, you know, saying everything he was fucking thinking. All his racist thoughts were brought to public eye. Like I said, that's where I like them to be. For me, you know, I would love for all the races in the world to expose themselves. Please do. Yes. That way there's no misconception about your fucking character. We know exactly who you are and how you feel, because I would rather not be hobnobbing with undercover racists, you know. So
I agree. I got one more thing to say.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Even though, and just to put a disclaimer out there, just because you sleep with one black woman does not make you non-racist. I'm just putting it out there.
Absolutely not.
Oh Lord.
All racist.
Another subject. That's another subject.
They will sleep with black women.
They will sleep with them. Yeah.
Exactly, Pat. I was getting ready to say a true racist, depending on your definition of the word, would not sleep with someone that they hate, right? Because the point of it is that the thought of that is so abhorrent to them because of that person's race that they wouldn't be able to find themselves to do it. But I understand your intent, but yeah, just to make sure we stay on path, I will say this again is another subject that we can definitely include when we have that session about racism, because I think that's definitely going to be a full session for us to just speak on what that means to us in today's society and etc. But great points here on this subject, fellas. So we're at the last one of the day. Before we share our thoughts on this, I want to put this message out here to our community. This next subject, the Atlanta shooting that occurred. This is definitely a very tough subject to discuss. We are all going to be sharing our individual views, which again are representative of each one of us singularly and not representative of the group as a whole. But in general, we operate with agreement that it is never our intention to specifically offend any one party or group. These are simply our views and perspectives on any given subject. So with that said, the official question is, what are your thoughts on the Atlanta shooting and the notion that the shooter had a bad day?
That's all he had?
So in other words, just to elaborate here, the bad day part specifically comes from a captain. His name is Jay Baker with the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office, who made a statement about the incident. And the captain's specific words were, he was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope. Yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did. Cherokee County Sheriff Office Captain Jay Baker said on Wednesday, the day of the shooting. He was describing a 21-year-old man accused of killing 8 people, mostly Asian and almost all women, in a rampage across 3 Atlanta area spas. Those words come directly from the article from the Washington Post that we are going to share when we release this session of the podcast. So I'm gonna go ahead and start here, if you fellas don't mind, because
That's cool.
Like the other.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I have one quick question.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, because I've been trying to find about the shooter and whatnot. So I heard the shooter was male. Like, did you give any description of like what descent the shooter was?
I believe he was white. I haven't seen that officially, but the article from the Washington Post that we're referencing specifically says he was describing a 21-year-old man, but that's it. But I want to say that it has been mentioned that he was a white male, that I've seen that somewhere, and I'll look that up officially.
Right. Thank you for that clarification.
No problem. So like the previous subject, the reason I wanted to go first is because my point is quite simple, right? Those captain statements, or that captain statement, was absolutely fucking ridiculous. Okay, I don't give a shit about what kind of day the shooter had to make those comments. He was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope. It's completely ridiculous. It again goes back to not only white privilege, but also underlying inherent racism. The fact that anyone would make an excuse for anyone shooting 8 people is abhorrent in itself. But the only reason that he felt comfortable enough to do that in the first place is because of the privilege that he has.
Bingo.
Because no one else in their right fucking minds would have been comfortable saying some shit like that, regardless of who the crime happened with. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. And it's my understanding that all that has happened thus far is that he has been relieved of being the spokesman on the case, officials say. They said that he faced a difficult task in reporting on that subject. What?
Like I said,
motherfucker, you're a sheriff, you're a captain in the sheriff's office. It's your responsibility to be tactful in these situations. And it is in no way tactful to put out an excuse on behalf of the shooter. The investigation hasn't even started yet. So the fact that this man felt comfortable enough to make those comments is an example of his privilege. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely offensive as fuck to the victims of the shooting. It's unacceptable because of his role in the sheriff's department. And I want him to have the proper repercussions. Which are what? Some are going to say, what's the proper repercussions? Should he be fired? Should he be? Abso-fucking-lutely. You know why? Because he now let his duty. It's an ongoing investigation. How are you making excuses already on behalf of the shooter with an ongoing investigation? It was the same day as the shooting. That shows that he already has bias, which to me means I don't have any comfortability in his ability to thoroughly investigate what happened here and provide the appropriate evidence.
Keyword was the shooter had a bad day. Like, yeah.
It's just ridiculous. The entire notion is ridiculous. It's representative of many, many things. The top one being his privilege, allowing him to have the comfortability to even say all of that. And then there's one more side of it that I want to touch on really quickly before I throw it to you to wrap up our sessions today. And that is, there's another side of it where people have asked me, how come Black people in particular are so quick to cape, and I'm throwing this word in quotation marks up, okay, for the Asian community and other communities when they don't cape for us. Okay, so let me just, I'm gonna say touch briefly on this because this is another subject that can end up being its own session, right? Which is why we're gonna have our own session, a singular session on racism. But let me just say this. I am a person who sees human beings for what they are, even though I'm a realist. At the end of the day, the reality that we live in is equality doesn't exist. Equality doesn't even exist when you're talking about racism. We are not all equally treated badly when it comes to racism. It's that simple. No other race of people went through 400 years of oppression in the country they helped build. It's that simple. I'm not saying that Asian Americans or Hispanics or any other minority didn't experience racism or don't. They absolutely have, but they have not experienced it to the extent of Black people. They have not.
Nope.
And it is not the same experience that is happening today. How many Asian American stories have you heard just in the last 10 to 15 years of these unarmed folks dying at the hands of police officers? Not even just Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, whatever the case may be. So what I said all of that to say, I'm not saying that we shouldn't stand together. I believe that anyone that's willing to do right, should be given the same amount of respect from an equality standpoint as anyone else. However, you have to understand why there are some people who say, well, I would like to see a little more unity from our minority sister and brothers, because it seems like we don't get the same level of support that we're expected to give out. So in other words, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Me personally, I personally believe that any group of people for any cause that stand united has much more impact than people who try to address any situation separately. That's with any cause. However, I definitely understand why some Black people feel like, well, I can't be responsible for saving every other minority because I have to focus on the Black community first. I get both sides of it. And that's just my thoughts on it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this to E-Man, and then Mr. PAT, you'll wrap us up for the day.
Thank you so much. Cause and the reason why I asked about, cause I didn't know too much about the shooter, but I was on IG and I follow a lot of people on IG. I got to double check, but I think it was the Black Wealth Network on IG that I followed. And I thought I saw a Asian woman that said that, the shooter might be Black and whatnot. But I gotta probably rewatch the video and hopefully I can probably
white.
Oh, but the shooter's actually white. That's why I wanted some clarification.
Yeah, they showed a picture of him. It's a white dude.
Oh, right. Okay. So, but to continue the story, to start off and just going one night, the captain started off and stated, the shooter had a bad day. I know plenty of people have bad days. Many people have bad days, but I don't think people who have bad days just goes up into a mall area and goes shoot up women. You know, yeah. I don't know who does that. I don't. You know, just because you had a bad day doesn't mean you need to go break something that doesn't belong to you. It's it's just it's very sick because I had a conversation about it with somebody just 2 days ago, and I basically stated, that the person I had the conversation, he stated basically, it seems like there's Asian racism going around because what has happened towards that whole shooting, and I followed up and just stated that it seems now we're about to create a huge race war now where we're about to divide everyone over everything now, because now they want all of us to react when, well, 8 Asian women got shot. Now everyone should be uproaring and screaming, it's extremely hard, and I'm gonna use my words it's extremely hard to not know what happened and what's not going on because everything's happened. So I tell everyone, do not let your emotions get it to you in the moment until you know the full story and situation. Towards this shooter and whatnot, I hope he gets the death penalty, because he innocently killed 8 women. I don't care if they're Asian and I don't care if they're black, but you killed people for no apparent reason, and it's very sick and it's very vile. But for a man who has a job to tell people on live TV and state that the shooter had a bad day, man, you might as well just put your badge in your locker and just not come into work the next day. You just let million people know that the man had a bad day. A lot of people have bad days, but to really show the insensitiveness about what you said, and it drives me like and the reason why I really didn't want to read too much into, because I would have been extremely like, I'm still extremely hurt by it because it doesn't make any sense towards what that chief said and what this shooter did and whatnot. And I'm so speechless right now because I thought I would have more to say, but every time I keep trying to get more and more of my thoughts out, I still have more rage and anger, because it's just very sickening, You don't know what those people had to do that day, but it's worse that they were caught in a situation over somebody's sick and vile, supposedly bad day, and I'm sorry, PH, you gotta take it this one. I gotta catch my breath for a little bit.
All right, it's cool. So my thoughts on the Atlanta shooting is that it was egregious. Really, any mass shooting that we can think of, I feel the same way. It's egregious.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime innocent lives are taken, it's very tragic. But unfortunately, this is the world we live in, and this is what white supremacy does.
Yep.
Overt white supremacy in this case took lives with a gun, while covert white supremacy said that the shooter had a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this goes back to protecting whiteness. When a non-white person kills people, they're a thug, they're a terrorist. Basically, they're everything bad under the sun. But when a white person murders people, they were having a bad day.
Preach, sir.
Now, I'm going to pivot a little bit and say that, honestly, and Naya, you did speak to this point, some of us, and when I say us, I'm talking about Black people, we are asking Asians why they want our help and solidarity now. I'll be honest, I'm one of those Black people asking that question. I'm at the point in my life where, of course, I'm very upfront and outspoken, and I'm out there with my pro-Blackness. So I'm at the point in my life where I prioritize Black people over everyone else. And reason being is all these other minority groups, Asians, Latinos, whoever you want to name, they prioritize their own people. So I just think Black people need to be doing the same. It's not about not caring about anybody else or not sympathizing or empathizing. It's not about that. Of course, we're all human beings. I'm a human being. I'm humane in my being. So, of course, when bad things happen to people, regardless of what race they are, I'm gonna feel it. I'm gonna feel it. And of course, I don't wish for bad things to happen to people. But at the same time, I'm a realist and I know what world we live in.
Exactly.
Different racial groups prioritize their own people. It's really that simple. And I just think Black people need to do that. It's really about survival at this point. So while the attacks on Asians is wrong, Black people are aware of and have experienced the anti-Black racism within the Asian community. When things happen to Black people, Asians aren't out there in droves standing up for us. There is no big minority coalition, at least not the way that the media portrays. Every race outside of Black people take care of their own race and they prioritize their own race, like I said before. And the truth of the matter is there is anti-Black racism and hostility towards Black people within these same minority groups. I know, yeah, I mean, I know, and I'm sorry, this might be one of my more long-winded ones, but I'm gonna get through it as fast as I can. But I'm also gonna say that I know that Asians have gone through discrimination and injustices, but we gotta be real here. Asians typically assimilate and they align with the system of white supremacy. For the most part, they don't
That's
fight.
A very interesting fact. But
I mean, I'm just being real, and just for the most part, they don't fight white supremacy. At least I'm talking about Asians in America, because I understand if we look at history, you know, Asians and Europeans had their, you know, had their back and forth. But I'm talking.
I just found out Asians actually have affirmative action also too.
Right, they've been benefiting off that. So I'm speaking more so about Asians in America.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is they don't fight white supremacy. I'm gonna just say it straight out like that. I mean, I haven't seen it. I'm sure that there are individuals out there of Asian descent who have fought against the system, but overall, I haven't seen it. And this is not to put Asians down or anything like that. But this is something that just needs to be said. If now let's think about it like this. If you are considered the quote unquote model minority, then the question would really be, why would you fight white supremacy? Especially if the system of white supremacy has allowed you to prosper within its framework. So the Black people who are indifferent are being that way for a reason. We're not indifferent for no reason. And these are just some uncomfortable truths that are coming to the surface.
Right.
Now,
that's very interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Because I know, because, you know, I love Asian. I'm around a lot of Asian people and I love them a lot. And many of them, and I didn't know this, some towards the affirmative action, the the main reason why they use this is because white supremacists don't want them at their table and whatnot. Because many, and I know everyone uses like, the big, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? I would say like so many, supposedly, like many people see many of those who are Asian, they see them as very intelligent, beings, because
stereotype.
and yeah, there it goes. I was looking for the word stereotype. They use that big stereotype, and they feel that we need to do something to keep them, to still have them there, but they don't have a seat at the table. And I feel like, that's what many of them, like you like to use the word benefit, they benefit from using affirmative action, but when they use it, it's for them to get a seat at the table that the table's not even there for them, and
it's a good point.
And that's how, I say it, because, most of them are all good people. Some of them don't even, they don't even want to be part of the system. They're trying to create their own system and keep things fluctuating and flowing. Because when you look at, and I don't want to shock people about this, but when you look at many interracials, towards like, many people feel, it's mostly like, Europeans. It's actually mostly those who are Latin, Hispanic descent, and Asian who tend, not to date outside, would tend to basically, will go outside their race and mostly date someone who is, of melatonin and whatnot. Many people who are white just tend to date outside their race and whatnot. That's like pretty common. Next is, it's the black. But just even looking at that, it's just like, it's crazy. But this is the reason why we always have this weird friction and whatnot. Because I know many Asians who tend to only work with Asians and Asians alone. Does that bother me? No, but but they want to, they know that if they get someone who is like, European, they know that they might not do for them. So that's why they will always do for themselves with their own people.
Right, which isn't a problem.
Which isn't a problem.
Yeah, they want to circulate money within their community, which is fine. I mean, racial groups should do that, and really, Black people need to do that more.
And sorry to cut you off, Ms. Knight. The reason why many of us don't do it is because they don't even believe within the own people within like our own community, because we're more divided than mostly everyone else. Like we're the only people who will never support ourselves but support somebody else. And I tell people I should probably support more Black businesses than many people that I know, because I know several business owners who are perfectly Black. And do I support them? Every single time that I do, every single day, but if I know that you're doing something, I always tell everyone, show me what you got, let me see it, and if you got something good, I'll definitely be a part of it. But that is the reason why, I wouldn't say why we're here, but this is the reason why nothing doesn't keep growing within us.
Yeah, so just to wrap things up for us, fellas, and I want to make a few clarifying statements. So first thing first, I want to clarify that Asian, that term actually refers to that continent, which is made up of more than just Orientals,
right,
who are representative of China and Japan and etc. That also includes India. India is a country within the continent of Asia. Right, so it's Russia. So that, just to clarify that. So we're specifically talking about Oriental. And I just want to make a few clarifications. So in my opinion, or at least I want to make a few clarifications on the statements I've previously made. So in my opinion, there are multiple topics we're discussing here. We're not still just on the Atlanta shooting and what occurred, right? We're talking about the Atlanta shooting, the captain's comments. At this point, we're talking about whether or not the Oriental community or other minorities have Black support, and to what extent that is. And then we're also talking about, the Black community and what we need to do to see change. That's a lot of different areas, right? That's why we definitely need to have that specific session on racism. But just a few things I will say here. For this particular subject, and specifically to the victims who lost their lives, and to the families of those victims who were impacted, we here at The Good, the Bad, and the Truth are definitely sorry for your loss and your experience.
Yes,
I agree.
The captain's comments, I think we have all agreed, were beyond inappropriate. They were ridiculous. He has a responsibility not only in his role as a captain of the department, researching and investigating that incident, but also as a human being to not make excuses for someone who just committed such heinous crimes. That was not his responsibility to speak on that, whether those were his thoughts or not. In regards to the Black community support of Oriental Americans, Asian Americans, or other minorities in general, my specific thoughts on the subject, again, are that I understand both sides. I understand the argument that we as a community have to focus on some of the outstanding issues that we face within ourselves, right? Which those topics and subjects varies. Supporting Black business, what all the different crime elements. I'm never going to say Black on Black crime because it's bullshit. It doesn't exist. Crime is crime in general. Right. Black on Black crime is a term that the media coined in order to deter from the fact that just as much crime in each individual community happens, right? Most of the time, a victim is accosted by someone of their own race. Okay, yeah, that's another rabbit hole I'm not even going to go down. But the point is, at the end of the day, the overall subject that we're discussing has human beings who lost their lives. Mm-hmm. And this sheriff, this captain in this sheriff's department, what we've all three agreed on was completely out of pocket for his comments. And, we hope that the full extent of repercussions that he should face, he does. And I think we've all agreed on that aspect of it. Yeah. So unless anyone has anything else they absolutely have to get out on any of these subjects, I think we'll wrap it up. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I just real quick, because I know we want to wrap it up. And, this is a podcast where we more or less peel back the layers. I know with my commentary, I like to peel back the layers because these things aren't always, for lack of a better phrase, black or white. No pun intended, black and white, no pun intended. Absolutely. But just touching on the media real quick, because I know you mentioned the media, just touching on that real quick. So what has been happening is, and this actually coincides with the Black community and our indifference and things like that. But what has been happening is the mainstream media has been trying to blame Black people for the attacks on Asians. Now, I'm not talking about the Atlanta shooting. I'm not talking about that specifically. But there have been other attacks on Asians that have taken place. And the mainstream media has been basically pinpointing or focusing on Black people so-called carrying out these attacks. Now, prior to the Atlanta shooting, Black people were basically the main people being blamed. Now that this mass shooting has come about and people have seen who the shooter is, they know that white supremacy is on the move. The mainstream media, and I'm gonna just say it outright, the mainstream media, being the white supremacist organism that it is, will always try to figure out how to make Black people the bad guys. When it comes to crimes committed against Asians by, for example, white perpetrators, the media doesn't really focus too much on it, or they don't focus on it for too long. For example, back in 2017, I want to make sure I get her name right. Ying Yang Zhang was abducted, beaten, raped, dismembered, and placed in 3 separate trash bags. And back in 2017. In 2019, 3 Asian men were attacked by a hammer. 1 died and 2 were critically injured. And the last one, because obviously this could keep going, in 2020, an Asian man by the name of Angelo Quinto died after a cop kneeled on his neck for 5 minutes. Kneeling on necks sounds familiar.
Right.
The fact is, these were all incidents done by white perpetrators. And there are more of these where they came from, but there was no heavy media coverage. And when these incidents were covered, race really wasn't brought up. But when a Black person gets into a physical altercation with an Asian, the media makes sure to cover that. Now, the thing is crime, but those crimes that I mentioned that were done by white men, I'll just be straight up and say you'd be hard pressed to find ones where Black people have done those same exact crimes. So with all of this in mind, we have to remember that when crime is brought up, society, through the mainstream media, wants to make it clear that crime is synonymous with Black people. They did this with the war on drugs. I mean, they make crime synonymous with Black people. So this is why when, for example, when a white person commits a crime, basically they were having a bad day. Us same people out here in the real world understand that the notion of having a bad day is a bunch of crap. And it is really just an excuse afforded to white people. Now, to just wrap it up in regards to the Atlanta shooting, hate crime is hate crime, and it should be punished. No matter which race the hate crimes are committed against, the perpetrators need to be punished. I will say that even though I am pro-Black, that doesn't mean that I'm anti everyone else. Some of my talking points in regards to the Atlanta shooting and everything else were simply addressing the elephants in the room. And I said elephants with an S. What we all know is what took place was a tragedy. And honestly, I hope that this terrorist gets punished to the fullest extent. With that being said, I also won't lose sight of the fact that all of the media coverage of the hate that Asians have been receiving is basically another way to shift the attention off of anti-Black racism at the hands of white supremacy. It was basically a way to change the subject off of things like, for example, defunding the police, which was a big thing that was, being put out there. And there's been a lot of talk about reparations. So this was all kind of these attacks obviously took place and they're real and they're heinous, and we know that, but the media aspect of it, the media part, was basically a smokescreen to basically shift attention away from Black issues. So that I'm gonna just say that.
We don't need another race war. We just don't.
I'm sorry, go ahead, E-Man.
All I just said, we don't need another race war. We don't need it. We don't need it at all.
No, we don't.
We really don't.
Unfortunately, it's going on, but
it's going on. But I hope to all our listeners that that we can use our intelligent mind and let's get it together. You know, and I'm just leaving it. That's the last thing I'm going to say for the day. Last thing.
All right. Well, fellas, I appreciate you as always. Great energy today. I think we covered some really tough subjects. I think this was probably the most racially driven session that we've had so far, right? Or at least the subjects.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
So this is definitely going to be a great session once released. And then, of course, to our audience, we always release mini sessions with the individual subjects that we discuss. As always, we appreciate you all here at The Good, the Bad, and the Truth.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
If you haven't yet, we implore you to go ahead and go on YouTube and subscribe to that channel so you can get all the latest updates and notices when we release this juicy content.
Yeah,
we
subscribe,
also
share, all that.
Exactly,
do everything.
do all that, everything. We will be sharing also the links to some of the items that we discussed, and we appreciate your patronage. We look forward to hollering at y'all. Peace, everyone.
We out. We out.
Yeah.
We out. We out.